What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Next Deal podcast. As always, we are here to help you find your next deal. Remember to like, subscribe, follow, give us a 5-star review, share it with your friends, your mom, your brother, your sister. Helps us get this podcast out there and get more eyes and ears on this to really help you guys grow. As always, I'm your host, Justin Dossie, and joined by my wonderful co-host, Vince Hall. Today, we have a special guest, Jennifer Steward. So a little bit about her. She has been involved in real estate investing for about 8 years. She's contributed to over 200 deals as an acquisitions rep. She does hard money lending as a broker, has a company of VAs of over 170 that she owns, plus even more on there. Quite a resume, Jen. Thank you for coming on today. How are you?
Justin, thank you so much for having me. Vince as well. I'm doing well. It's a nice, balmy 44 degrees here in north of Dallas. It's been about 14 the rest of the week. So we're glad to see those higher temps come out. We don't have to drip our pipes anymore. Anyone who has properties around the country knows what an uphill battle it's been just keeping those pipes thawed this week. So we're glad we have one less thing to do and not being worried about pipes freezing.
I can't tell you how many friends I've seen post on social media that live in different states, Texas specifically, that's not necessarily used to the cold, of busted pipes and all that kind of stuff going on. So I understand.
Yes. So the chickens are out and running around now, and so that's good. That's good.
Very cool.
We're happy. We know the weather's good.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
I saw that. We're gonna have to talk about the chickens in the farm.
They started out as egg chickens and ended up being therapy chickens. I mean, what can I say?
Okay, there you go.
There's this guy on Instagram. He's got all these chickens that follow him around in his house, and they're little babies and stuff. It's the funnest little Instagram page that I've stumbled onto.
Yeah,
and I mean, they like follow him into the kitchen, and
that's so funny.
Surprisingly attachment oriented, so they're wonderful.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've always wanted chickens. I don't know. I've heard it both that you want them or you don't want them, but I don't know. I've always wanted land and chickens and all that kind of stuff. So might be something to do. So we'll have to get into that.
Justin, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember Elizabeth, the duck lady, Justin?
Yeah.
They've got lots of chickens. They always lose a lot of chickens to like foxes and coyotes and stuff, though, too. Eagles.
Yeah, my dogs would probably have a field day. So
they don't really mix well with dogs.
Yeah, I'd have to have some land and not just the backyard that I have currently, I think, to make that happen. But
sorry to get us off topic there. We can talk about chickens
You're
later.
Good.
But yeah, I just
chicken podcast now.
Yeah. Well, Jen, you've got a lot going on. How'd you start in this journey? What did that kind of look for you?
Well, some people find this interesting. So I just started out as a $5 an hour virtual assistant right out of college. I graduated college a little later in life. I was 30, and I had just given birth to my second son. So I wanted to be home with my brand new baby, and rent was going up. We were very impoverished at the time. Rent was going up by $200. It was funny because we were on the other side of the landlording,
Yeah.
And the $200 going up meant moving in with my in-laws. And I said, no way. I love my mother-in-law, but there's just no way that we're going to do that. So someone said, hey, would you call for my boss, who's an investor, for $5 an hour? I'm sorry, that's all we can afford. But in the 20 years I've known you, I've never seen anyone better at being able to determine people's inherent motivations, right? So my degree was in psychology. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Texas at Dallas, Bachelor's of Science. So, that was a talent that I was honestly kind of born with. I mean, unfortunately, I was horrible at math and, it is a science degree, but, I was a B student at best in all those subjects until I switched and transferred to the UTD as a psychology major and just blew the curve on almost every test. So I think God gives us all something that we can use to make a living. I don't think he leaves anyone on this planet without enough talent or some sort of talent to make a living to differentiate themselves. Mm-hmm. But, with just a bachelor's, I mean, I thought I'd make $40K a year at best. And
yeah,
now that's my goal for maybe a 2-week period, right? So you can really leverage a psychology degree in real estate in a way that makes you extremely money you've never even dreamed of, right? But it all started making $5 an hour just calling as a virtual assistant for this investor out of Seattle. I hear he has since gone out of business.
Oh,
So,
all right.
yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. And a lot of people that I worked for as an acquisitions rep, they've now gone out of business. I would say most of them, throughout the years because they didn't keep their marketing going, right? So
Yep.
how did I start all these other companies? Well, I was but a humble cold calling acquisitions manager until Jim Ingersoll put me on stage at Dealmaker. He said, Jennifer, you talk to sellers more than anyone that I know. And I would be on the phone from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday just to make a living. At $15 an hour, I'd worked my way up through the ranks from $5 an hour to $15 an hour. And, so in order to pay my bills, I would work from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I would start calling for investors on the East Coast at 8 a.m. Shout out to Joe Terrio for being one of the people who hired me and kind of mentored me along the way. And then all the way calling for investors in Hawaii until 11 p.m. So it was very, very long hours of talking to sellers all day, every day. So I put in about 20,000 hours, give or take, maybe 3,000 hours in 6 years. So I don't know very many people have that much experience talking to sellers. I loved it, but it was very low paying. I mean, it's a great skill set to have, but it's not as lucrative as owning the company yourself or owning several companies, right? So after Jim Ingersoll put me on stage, I had the resources and I had the demand of people coming to me, wanting me to do all these different things for them. First off, I thought all investors knew how to talk to sellers. It really surprised me that most don't.
A lot don't,
or realtors. So I thought it was crazy. I'm like, why is he putting me on stage for stuff that everybody knows? Well, maybe 10% of the audience had ever even really done direct to seller marketing, which was crazy to me. So then all these hundreds of people are coming to me wanting me to do the marketing for them. So I thought, gosh. So I started a data and skip tracing company so that we can get as low a cost as possible on our data and skip tracing. So we pull about 2 million records per month, which allows us to sell it to the public at 3 cents per record skip traced and pulled. I actually started the virtual assistant agency back when I was but a humble cold caller in 2018. And it just kind of organically grew. And now, like I said, I have 170 in about 6 different countries. And then the hard money lending brokering, I mean, that came because what's the point of getting something under contract if my buyer's community can't afford to buy it? So I got tired of hearing, well, I don't quite have the capital for this. Well, I wanted to take that objection off the table.
Yeah.
Hey, if I can loan you the money, will you still buy it? Right?
Yeah.
So everything was an outcropping of the demand centered around the acquisitions activity itself, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And of course, I don't do it all. I'm just kind of the doorway that people go through, and then I put them through to my staff. So we set up cold calling marketing for people, text marketing. We'll set appointments. We'll pull the skip trace and the data. You have to do your own closing, though. I've never really been able to farm out and replicate closers en masse. I don't know anyone who's done that successfully. I know people who say they have, and then when they actually sell it, I hear complaints like, oh, it was basically just another lead manager. So I know it's possible, but I don't know anyone who's done it, and I certainly haven't done it because usually by the time they're talented enough to do that, they usually want to go out on their own. So that's something where I find you kind of have to do your own closing, but I have every other piece of the sales cycle mapped out to where it can be done for you, but somebody's got to close, and it's not going to be me now because I've been too busy for a couple of years now. But if you need someone to train you to do acquisitions, I used to do that. Now I decided it kind of slowed me down, but there are great people who do that. Jerry Green, John Martinez. They're excellent at training you to do acquisitions. Jerry's the one who taught me to do virtual acquisitions over the phone. But yeah, so I stopped teaching that just because it's really hard to teach people. And Jerry and John just do it better. But anyhow, everything else I offer to the public as a way to just make it so we can close as many closable deals, right, as fast as possible. And the goal of the marketing is to get in front of as many people as fast as possible for as little money as possible. So that's always been my main goal because as you can imagine, when I quit my job and started my own company, I had to be as cost effective as possible. And a lot of people are in that same boat. So I built it for the people who are coming out of their jobs or wanting to quit their jobs and can afford the marketing and still get that high cash on cash return for their marketing investment. And that's basically the rundown.
Yeah. Getting to the 170 VAs, is that just within the real estate space, or are they, answering phones and doing things for other industries as well?
Great question. So I'd say 20% of them focus on real estate. And then the other 80% are more generalists. I was a generalist for 18 years. I started sales whenever I was 15. But of course, I took breaks to be a mom, a housewife, and go to college and stuff. But generally speaking, I started when I was 15. So I was a generalist for a long time myself. I only started in real estate about, 8 years ago. And so because of that, a large percentage of the demand that I get still comes from those days of whenever I was a generalist. And so, and honestly, guys, here, I'm going to say something about our industry. We're cheap about hiring our VAs. I mean, the European Californians and New Yorkers who come to me in other industries, they're cool paying my American team 30, 40, 50 an hour for high performers. But you will never see that in the real estate space. So there's more profit in it for me to diversify the industries by far. So I do take care of my real estate brothers and sisters, but we are notoriously cheap. So
yes, you are not wrong. It's funny. I just left an event where all real estate investors were together and everyone was talking about, and I didn't get a chance to chime in because there's so many people talking about it, but everyone was talking about outsourcing the most important part of their business to AI. And that was communicating with sellers, right? And that was, there's talks about outbound cold calling using AI software, inbound answering using AI software, all that kind of stuff. And and so like, to your point, everyone there is like wanting to spend the least amount of money possible. But for me, and I'm curious kind of what your thoughts are, like, that's where I spend the most money, is the people that are making the deals happen, that are making stuff actually come to fruition, versus like, I use AI all the time, don't get me wrong, but it's on menial tasks that are not customer facing typically, right? Spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's very funny because I have seen that time and time again of like, can I pay $3 an hour for this VA? Like, you could, but you're going to get $3 an hour work.
That's my experience. So first off, my attorney, who's Mr. Jeff Watson, tells me that outbound AI is illegal. First off, most people, that's something that
most people don't realize it, but it is. Yeah.
Outbound AI is illegal. And if you want to know details on that, get with your attorney, because I'm not an attorney. Now, inbound is different. You want to do inbound AI? I think that's okay. But outbound AI is illegal. Now, who knows how much that's going to be enforced? I have too many families relying on me to risk that myself, but I don't mind things being outsourced to AI, even though I spent years of my life building that skill set. I am okay with letting it go to AI, and here's why: because it is hard, drudgery work. Imagine if I was a factory worker in the 1800s and I'm the one who, has this menial job and I get really good at it, right? Well, I can complain that my job's being taken over by machinery, or I can say, God, that was really actually some soul-sucking work. Because it was. I mean, talking to sellers all day, I got really good at it. But my God, it was soul-sucking work. That's why nobody does it. I mean, I'm 39, and yes, I woke up after like 3 hours of sleep. But I look every day of 39 and then some days, just because of the years of talking to sellers over the phone. But, I don't know if AI is ever going to get to the point of being able to have a story that people can relate to. And one of the things that would sell, other than price, right? I mean, sellers really care about price more than anything else in their own mind. That's what they think. But intuitively, right? And John Martinez teaches this, our emotional brain processes, I don't know if it's thousands or millions more bits per second of information than our logical brain, because no matter what your personal beliefs are, it evolved last, or at least it was given to us last, however you want to see it. And it's just more slow. logical brain is more slow. So people use emotions to buy big purchases. And this shows in all kinds of studies that people where there's more than 5 variables to consider, their brain decision making will automatically switch to their emotional brain. So how can AI, and I'm asking this seriously, how can AI tap into the emotional brain necessary for your average mom and pop seller to make that decision? I'm not talking about commercial sales, okay? We all know that's cap rates, cash on cash, etc. AI actually may work fine for commercial, right? Because that's not an emotional decision. These are sophisticated investors who are doing spreadsheets.
It's business, it's money. Yeah.
Absolutely. So AI may be fully appropriate for commercial. Sorry to say for my commercial brethren and sisters. I know that business is hard enough as it is without AI coming in. But for your mom and pop sellers, I think that's almost always going to be an emotional decision. Now, I'd like for someone to prove me wrong on that. I'm open to other opinions, but I don't
think
see
you're right.
Until AI is as good as Data on Star Trek Next Generation. Okay. I don't think it's going to be emotive enough to bring decision making to the forefront, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it really comes down to having that. It is an emotional decision, and for us, what we've seen is it always comes down to once they trust you and they like you, you're much more likely to get that deal versus somebody else, right? And that's a huge part of it, and that's really hard to do currently. I don't know, it might change. Who knows? It changes every week, but this can be very, very challenging to do from an AI standpoint, I think.
And I have to say, I have at least 10 clients come to me per day, strangers who are looking for live people. Only one person out of my volume of 10 people per day over the last 5.5 years has asked me about AI. So it's not as pervasive. So whenever you're connected and networked, you take for granted having access to the latest and greatest. But there's a whole other 98% of people out there, Justin, who this is not even on their radar yet, right? So we get used to being at the forefront, feeling like we're left behind if we're not completely on it all the time. Yeah. And there's all these people who are out there killing it, making all this money that you've never even heard of. They don't put themselves out there on the interwebs at all. You have no idea how many people come to me and they're like, yeah, I make $500,000 a month. I'm like, what? Who are you? Like, I've never even heard of you. What do you mean you make $500,000 a month? Because they're wholesaling apartments, for example. Like, yeah, I don't even want anyone. I'm not even gonna name the person's name because they don't want people to know who they are. So there's all types of people out there who are making good money, who aren't connected, that are doing things the way they've been doing them for 10 years, still sending mailers, still working with just one virtual assistant. So don't ever get too wrapped up and, oh man, I'm going to get left behind, because I know so many people who are making the most money with the oldest tech and they don't care what anyone else is doing. So just keep that in mind. It may take a little stress off of you. I know it has me as these clients come to me. I think, here I've been trying to keep up with everyone else and be competitive when really it's okay if you're 5-10 years behind. You'll never hear anyone else say that. It's okay if you're 5-10 years behind. You can still make a lot of money.
Yeah. Those are some of my favorite people too, is the ones that you would never know that they're as successful as they are. One of the most successful real estate investors here in St. Louis has zero social following online at all. He does what he does. He nets 7 figures a year or more to himself every single year, has multiple companies, is wildly successful, and you'd never know if you ran into him on the street.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good uses AI.
Yeah, I don't think he does at all. Not at all.
There's a really good book. I can't remember the author, and I think I mentioned it before. Is The Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah.
Find that book and read it. And I mean, there's so many people out there that you have no idea. They might be just wearing, Brett Favre, right, of the Green Bay Packers. You'd never know, aside of him being a football player, that he was a millionaire based upon what he wore and what he drove as a car and things like that. The dude went to Walmart and bought Wranglers You know?
Yep.
You know what made me change from being that person to a more flashy person? It was a heart attack. So I was very frugal and lived well below my means, maybe only spent 30% of what I made until I had a heart attack. And then it was a heart attack from stress. All right. When you start from the bottom, work your way up, there's like a compounding stress effect. In fact, you can find studies and see that people who make money first generation and set up the rest of their generations for life, those people have a shorter life expectancy. Isn't that interesting? Right?
Very
So now
interesting.
my job is to figure out how to curb that. But I had a heart attack, and then I was like, hey, man, I'm going to get my dream car. I'm going to go on all these trips. I'm going to get the nice clothes. I'm going to get the jewelry. So I was delaying all of that, thinking that I would maybe do that in my 60s and 70s. Right? And then when I had that heart attack at 38, I said, no, I'm not going to be the millionaire next door anymore. I'm going to be, there goes Jen in the convertible Corvette, which I know that's kind of blue collar, that my dream car is a Corvette. I don't care. I've ridden in Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and they're nice, but I'm a blue collar girl at heart, and my dream car is kind of a blue collar American muscle car, and that's my Corvette. So now, I ride that around, and so, I'm done with the millionaire next door for the foreseeable future. I'm going to be
enjoying it while you can.
My life until the heart attack's so long in the rearview mirror, I've forgotten.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Enjoy that process. So I'm curious. No, not at all. And that's great. I mean, that's something that
the habits of being frugal gave me the capital I needed to get out of my low-paying job and start the companies that I started. So I think frugal for me was a very necessary season. But for now, that season is over. So I do highly, highly, highly encourage frugality for people who are wanting to be free of their current income source, whether it's a self-employment role or whether it's employment, whatever it is. You're going to need to be frugal in order to invest capital if you're starting from nothing. That's just that's facts.
Agreed. We've always seen there's a running joke inside one of the mastermind communities that one of my brother started of you don't want to be the guy that does his first wholesale deal and buys a Rolex with it. Like that's like
right.
No. You don't want to nor need to be that person, like just to have the Rolex. Like there's a time and a place for it, right? And I think that's an important thing for people to realize, especially when they're new, and if they come from like a blue collar background, or they grew up poor or whatever it is. It's very, very tempting when you wholesale a deal and you're like, I've got 15 grand that just came in and I only put in 2 hours of work. Why not go buy it now? And it's like, well, let's build something sustainable first, and then do that, then enjoy that. Because I'm a firm believer of enjoying the fruits of your labor as long as it doesn't screw you over, right? Like, don't do it too soon.
And especially because no one cares. No one cares that I have a Corvette.
No
one cares that my hair literally costs $3,000 to have my extensions put in. Nobody cares that, I have a Burmese rare ruby, nobody cares about this stuff. I'm the only one who cares about that. Right. Yeah. So you can't do stuff and buy things and think that, it's going to make you more lovable. So I used to think that if I looked a certain way and made a certain amount of money, I would be more lovable. I would get rejected less in my personal life. That the people who were already in my life would respect me more.
Yep.
That is.
Yeah, you don't.
Really not the case. You can't buy respect or love.
You can't. And it's easy to spot when someone's paying to try and do that too.
Oh yeah.
Right. And like we like Vinny and I both grew up in similar like churches and things like that. And there was always a saying is like, don't buy things to impress people who don't care. Like there's
because they won't care.
No, if that's why you're doing it, there's no point. Like just like you said, your dream car is not a Ferrari. It's a Corvette, right? So you buy the car that you want, right? Not what you think other people want. I love that. That's awesome.
What's that saying? Don't care about what people think, and don't think that people actually care.
Yeah.
They're too busy thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So they want to know how you can help them, hence this podcast, right? Next deal. How can we help you get your next deal. That's what we're here to
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. And I'm kind of curious because you've got a lot going on, right? You're doing a bunch of different things, and it sounds like you've got a good system and process in there. And I think that's for people that are looking for like a tip to get through the next deal. We've always done like practical, like market this way or do this or do that.
Good.
But from a systems and process standpoint, that's a huge thing that comes into play when you're growing and you're getting bigger that a lot of people neglect.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are and how you handle that with the multiple things you've got going on, is, how you build that out to make it sustainable so you can grow and you can live the life that you want to.
Well, the first thing I do is that I do not have overhead until an order is incurred, right? So with my virtual assistants, they are basically sitting on the bench until someone hires them. And I take a percentage of the income that comes in from them being hired. So of all of my businesses, I maybe have, including websites, different fees, not counting taxes, my overhead is about $400 a month fixed, because I do not incur overhead until an order comes in. Data and skip tracing order, right? I give my vendors that do these orders for me half of what I charge, right? And so they get paid whenever I get paid. And that's how my whole staff works,
Okay.
right? So, but whenever I was more involved in acquisitions, that was a little different. You do have to have some overhead for your acquisition managers, for your people who are making the calls and the appointments for you. That business model doesn't lend itself to low overhead as much as what I'm currently doing with the DSCR loans, the data and the skip tracing, and the virtual assistants, right? So as we all know, volume has been down. Volume has been way down. In fact, one of my favorite dispo companies just went out of business. I don't want to say who it is. Great guy, right? He helped me a lot. So when my favorite dispo company connected to all the hedge funds and hundreds of like continuous buyers in every market, when that guy goes out of business, that tells me that my pivot was maybe something that is more sustainable in a low volume market, right? That's not to say I'm not going to go back to doing deals. I'm just not currently doing deals because I haven't seen enough demand. It seems like investor demand is really soft, right? So a lot of people I know are pivoting and putting deals on the MLS. But I have stayed so busy just doing loan volume, data, skip tracing, and the virtual assistants that, and contributing to other people's pathways of making money, that I'm not currently doing any marketing for deals. So that's my honest answer on how do I make the systems and processes work, is I make sure and keep my overhead as low as possible in whatever business I'm in, especially in a low volume environment like what we're in right now. So if you're in commercial or if you're even in residential, you have to pivot. And I've seen a lot of people pivot. I've been telling my friends for years, close your stupid brick and mortar location and go virtual. And like, no, Jen, I think there's some ego. No, I want to show up every day and be the big boss. You can be the big boss online. I promise you that. You can be a big boss in your pajamas, on your couch, and just trust me. So I've seen a lot of my friends who are really obstinate against that switch to more low overhead type environments, and you're talking about the AI. And so, more people are starting to jump on that bandwagon, but I've been on that bandwagon from the beginning, is, have everything and everyone be virtual versus showing up in person. And I know not everyone's for that, but in a low volume environment, you may not even have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point, especially if it's from a wholesaling side of things or flipping or things like that. Like one of my friends here locally in St. Louis, he probably does, I don't know, 50 flips a year. He works from home. He works from home. Like he has a warehouse where all his material is stored. Like, cause he's one of those guys that like has, and he'll be on this podcast, I think in February, which I'm really excited for. But like, he's the guy that he's like, I've got my cabinets, I've got my flooring, I've got my paint, I've got my fixtures. It's the same. I'm not changing that for anybody. And every flip looks good and it looks the same.
Genius.
And we know we can get in and out within 4 weeks, typically, right? When he does those. So, but like, I know he's netting 6 figures or more a month for his family. by doing that, So it's very, very, very smart way to look at that, especially if it's not needed, right? Like I think that's one thing COVID taught everybody is most of this stuff can be done virtually. Like even if people are trying to go back to, in person, I think people prefer it. And I think personally, from what I've seen, because one of our companies called Porter is all virtual, I think people perform better too when you have that ability.
Well, people say, well, I can't hold them accountable. I said, there's nothing more accountable than working virtually because nothing can be faked. The numbers are black and white. There's no, I come in and I'm nice to you and I bring you coffee and maybe I look good in my dress and subconsciously that, we call that the halo effect if someone looks nice. So all these things, hijack our more logical, rational brains if we're coming in person together. So in fact, I find it's the opposite, that you can evaluate your team more quantifiably in a virtual setting than you can in person where you get attached. People don't really get attached to you as much virtually. It takes much longer and it's a very different vibe. So
that's a great point. There's not as much, I want to say fakeness, but you're getting through directly to what you're trying to find immediately. And it's for us, if you have the right leadership in place, you can have an amazing culture virtually. Like our culture at Call Porter over the last year and a half is the best it's ever been. And I think it's a big part of who is helping run everything over there on a daily basis. He talks to everybody on a daily basis, does meetings with people, and our performance has never been better. Our team has never been happier. And makes it pretty easy to get people as well, because then we can just go to our team and say, hey, we need to hire 3 people. Who do you know? And they go and brag about, hey, this is what I get to do every single day. I work from home. Awesome. I don't have to worry about finding babysitter for my kid or whatever it is. Right. And it's, Vince does all of our sales at Call Porter. And I don't really remember the last time I saw him in person, but he kills it. I see him here every week, but in person, it's been a minute.
That's fantastic. And no one talks about there's other stuff. There's other risks about people coming in person. We've all seen, I don't know if it's just the news or if society is somewhat destabilizing, but, I knew an acquisitions guy who brought a gun into work after his boss had threatened to fire him. And, I don't get that kind of crazy stuff. I don't do crazy. And that's what I tell my people. There is zero ROI on drama. So I tolerate zero amount of drama. And in person, you get more drama. You don't really get drama.
That is so true.
Yep. So I don't have anyone bringing a gun into the office and brandishing it because I need to let them go for low performance.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I would say the only part of working virtual that I absolutely hated. So during COVID, I was actually a teacher. So
really?
I'm new to the real estate space
awesome.
within the last few years, but I was a teacher and absolutely freaking hated it. I mean, you cannot be a teacher with middle school students virtually. It just doesn't happen.
Both of my kids, they actually do, you say that they do public homeschool, which is all virtual. But to be fair, they're both in the gifted and talented class. Okay. I was not. I was my IQ was always right below the gifted and talented level. So I was the smartest person with the regular people, as painful as that was. But my kids are 97th, 98th percentile IQ. And they do great with virtual homeschool. But I think that's probably the exception and not the rule. So
some things I can see virtually, but I was a science teacher and had a lab. So it's you can't send lab equipment to all of my 56 something students and say, we're going to do this together. I was
don't touch these chemicals until I tell you to.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But they actually do send us all the stuff for the lab for the public homeschool option.
That's newer. That's a newer option. That hasn't always been a thing for science kids.
My kids are lucky. We didn't have that 20 plus years ago.
But
that's so funny.
So that's the kind of lifestyle you can have, though, right? By starting your own business and getting into real estate. And no matter what part of real estate you're in, no matter which way you slice the orange, it's juicy. So I retired my children's father. And so he's done working, and he just, And then the kids, so what we'll do is we'll just take off and go wherever we want in the whole world. And all the kids have to do is just log in for class. They're done by noon, right? So we check out of the hotel usually around noon. So we have the freedom to just travel completely anywhere we want in the whole world, with their dad being done and all my businesses being virtual and the kids' homeschool is virtual. We're done with the matrix, guys. But this comes
That's
from
awesome.
someone who had $4,000 in their bank account just 6 years ago. So if
started at $5 an hour.
Yeah, literally at $5 an hour. It's a true story. In fact, that is documented. If you go to, I'll give you my website. You'll see my agency website, and you can see, affiliated with Jennifer Stewart, and you can see whenever I was but a humble cold caller. That's still in the history of my Upwork profile. You can see that my first job was $5 an hour in 2016. So that's not just a tall tale. That's something that you can verify and look at. And yeah, guys, I still have to pay taxes, so I'm still in that matrix. But other than having to pay taxes, we're completely free people, and that's
awesome.
I thought I had depression and anxiety until I took agency over my life, and it was amazing how the depression and anxiety went away. I never got on any medication for it, but I was diagnosed with it, and it went away as soon as I had my freedom. And since like fourth or 1/3 of the country is on meds, I wonder how many of them could get off their meds if they just had the kind of freedom that we enjoy in real estate.
Yeah,
a lot. Like from someone who has been on them and is like, I'm like 90% off of them at this point. And a lot of it does come down to like the level, for me anyway, came down to like the level of pressure and stress that I felt. And it all started before I knew how to deal with any of that, how to, handle stress, how to handle anxiety, all that kind of stuff. Like I never knew anything about it until it happened. And I was like, I'm dying. I don't know what's going on, but I'm about to die, whatever this thing is going on right now. And yeah, literally all came down to just how to, for me, the further along we've got in life, the less it bothers me. And now it'll be more like if I have to go speak, I'll get a little nervous, right? Like normal stuff like that, not of like, I woke up and I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack and I don't know why. And it's because I'm thinking of all these million things that are going wrong or, whatever. And the further you get from that, the better it gets.
Yeah. Well, that's something to focus on, Justin, right? So whenever you go through therapy, they'll say, focus on that. Like anytime you feel that feeling, focus on that and then really think about what are your thoughts behind that, right? Go with that. And
it's one of the number one things I do is that I learned like it's probably 6 years ago about mindfulness in general. And when you are feeling anxious or whatever, the more you avoid it, the worse it gets. The harder you try and push it away, the harder you try and bury it, the worse that gets. And for me, I noticed this like 5-6 years ago. The second I started feeling anxious, I would literally say out loud to myself, like, hey, you feel anxious as shit right now, and that's okay. Like, and then start writing through like, well, why? So I do is I'll do 5 whys. I'll ask myself why, like, hey, why do I feel this way? Okay, and I'll come up with an answer. Well, why do I do that? Okay, well, why? And you get further and further through the layers of like your bullshit responses essentially, and get down to the nuts and bolts of why you're actually feeling that way. And same thing with like interviewing people too. Like you have your pre-rehearsed answers at the surface level, but the more you ask why, the further you get to the actual root of the problem. And that's been just those two things for me over the last 5-6 years have been huge, of acknowledging it first and not trying to shove it away and like, nope, this isn't happening, because then it happens. And then digging through why that is and why that happens. And it's like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I feel pretty good right now, actually. Like, I don't have that problem anymore. Yeah.
That is truly awesome.
It's insane how many, I deal with anxiety and have for, a really long time. And, but I've been able to figure out, the whys, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to come down, your eating habits, your exercising habits.
Yes.
A lot of that deals with, helps with controlling your anxiety, but also your mind. I'm a big believer that we are not omniscient beings, and we're not supposed to be.
Well said.
And this is a huge reason why a lot of people have anxiety. Like business owners feel like they have to be omniscient. Like I've got to know every single thing, every single detail. Well, no, it's the processes and the systems and the people you have to help you so you don't have to feel like that. Right. And, people with the news, for example, we're, and this is my opinion, we're built to be local people, not omniscient people. So when you watch Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and you're figuring out what's going on in the world all around you, and it's just like, oh, this is what's happening in Iraq. This is what's happening in Ukraine. This is what's happening over in the Middle East. This is what's happening over here. We're not meant to be like that. And it can drive people absolutely insane and into the ground. That's why I become a person to like really focus in on me and my family and my community, right? Because that's going to keep your mind more localized, and all that other stuff is just going to drive you nuts. Another reason why I'm not even into politics. People wanted to get into politics with me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person to talk about it.
Nope.
Like, you can go somewhere else. I'm not going to have an opinion. I'm very Ron Swanson on,
Yeah, there you go.
And that's about where I'm at.
Yep. It's very intelligent, Vince. Very intelligent to realize that, because I think people get addicted to the brain chemicals associated with like the adrenaline of the fear, and I'd rather be addicted to the adrenaline of building the bottom lines of my clients and my business. And I know that you said processes are important, so I'll just give you my very simple process on how I would do deals, right? Because that's probably what people want to hear. There's nothing crazy here. You're going to go, wow, you had this person on your podcast and this is the tack that they're using. But guys, it's very simple. So we pull a list, we skip trace it. Our list is, they have to be, the property has to be owned for at least 10 years. It needs to be 2012 and older so they can add value. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. It works. I like vacant, absentee, high equity, right? I mean, that's the typical one. Add in a tax lien for spice. Add in code violation for spice. I personally don't prefer probate or pre-foreclosures. I know a lot of people make a lot of money on those. It's just not my preferred flavor because I don't.
It's timely too.
Yes.
Yeah. I would rather deal with tired landlords. That's my favorite niche. I don't want to deal with, a probate folks or, foreclosures, because those people just kind of keep their head in the sand. I mean, we all know this. So
until the final hour.
Yeah, until the final hour. And then sometimes, so anyways, I don't want to deal with that. That's not my flavor. It doesn't make me happy. And, so we pull a list, and then, I was always big on skip tracing it until all the 10 DLC stuff came down the pipes. And then we kind of moved away from skip tracing and went back to cold calling. We did find a company that does not currently have to do all the 10 DLC jumping through hoops. I don't want to share the name of it just because I want people to come to me in order to to have access to it. I don't know if my team would let me share the name of it, because sure enough, as soon as we share the name of it, everyone's going to maybe go to it, and then they're going to get 10 DLC regulated. So part of the way you find text messaging companies that aren't 10 DLC regulated is I only let people know on a one-to-one basis whenever they come to me as a client, right? If you put it out there, they're going to get high volume, then they're going to get regulated. And that's kind of the thing. Whether it's through me or anyone else, you have to find kind of these small mom and pop text messaging companies that aren't being regulated yet. And that's the secret to being, but it's whack-a-mole. I mean, you find one text messaging company and then they get 10 DLC regulated, and you get another one. And it's this whole deal. I mean, to get 10 DLC approval, you have to have a website that looks like you're not just a wholesaler, and you have to look like a full service, and then you have to have a privacy policy and all the stuff we didn't have before. I mean, we were doing so many deals, just killing it, not having to deal with any of that. And then plus, there was so much demand. So those are some of the things we've helped our clients and what we had to personally overcome in order to continue to do wholesaling. So then, of course, so whatever your marketing strategy is, that's our preferred one. We have it come back into this amazing, brand new, I'm just kidding, it's just Podio, guys. We use Podio, $25 a month, like everyone else for the last 10 years. It does everything that we need. It really does. Like people, so my mentors, colleagues, like, oh yeah, I got Salesforce and I spent $70K for a build out. Dude, I make more money than you, and I'm not going to do Salesforce. I'm just not going to do it. So Podio does
simple
everything
works.
that you need. And then this is, very high tech. We do follow up on call rail. That's it. We just do call rail, and we do follow up, and we put it into Google Calendar, and boom, we do deals. Our clients, they do deals. It's nothing crazy, guys. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right?
No, and I'm glad you said that, because it's when you went to the lists and stuff like that, those are the exact same ones we work with our clients. We do throw in, like you said, some of those niche ones as needed, but in our experience, and I'm curious if you've seen this too, it's two things why people aren't successful in real estate investing: is they're not consistent in marketing, or they're not consistent in follow up. It's usually the two things.
If you just hire that out, you will be successful. If you stop closing, you will not. And that's why I don't have tons of clients from years and years back, because they're not consistent on one or the other, and you're dead in the water. But then as the marketing person, they try to blame you. And I'm like, excuse me, I see here that you didn't show up to half of these appointments that my staff set you. What were you doing, man? You weren't your business, so you're going to blame me. That's
my favorite thing is CRM audits. It's like when we work with our clients and they're like, look, your marketing's just not performing. I'm like, all right, that may be like, we're not perfect. I will say there's times where we got to tweak things, but let's hop into your CRM and let's look at it. Okay, well, you marked 90% of the leads that came in dead after following up with them twice. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
Until the property has sold, it's not a dead lead. Now, this will make you laugh. This is a good gem to drop with you guys. So we had a list of folks who put us on do not call, right?
Yep.
And one of our VAs in the field, this was not my company. This was when I was but a humble acquisitions manager. One of the VAs on the back end had accidentally queued up for me as my list to call the do not call list.
Oh, man.
We did 4 deals out of the do not call list. There's no such thing as a dead lead until the property is sold. Period. And accidentally calling on the DNC list, again, not my company. This was when I was a humble acquisitions manager.
Yep.
They queued it up for me, and boom, we got so many deals. So there's no such thing as a dead lead. If your people are marking as a dead lead, you tell them it's not a dead lead until that person has sold every single property that they own, and that's it. They are now a renter.
Yep.
That's when it's a dead lead, is whenever they are now a renter.
And when they're ready to sell, I want to be the one they think of. And that's because I'm going to follow up with them until they sell.
Exactly. So no dead leads, guys. I see that, just like what you said. I see the dead leads, and I'm like,
man, it's such a simple concept, and it's so frustrating that it doesn't get followed sometimes. I'm like, guys, you're spending the hard part's over. You got the lead in. Like, that's the hard part, is getting the lead. Just follow up and do your process and work through it, and the deals will come. Like, I guarantee you there's deals in your CRM that you're missing because of that.
I think the biggest and most valuable role in any company that in the industry we're talking about is the person who does the follow-up, your lead manager.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon my language. I saw you cuss once, so I'm going to cuss. Any asshole can close, okay? But it takes a special, really intelligent, consistent person to do the lead nurturing, and it's probably one of the lower paid jobs in the company. So if you can offer a lead manager who does an excellent job, a base plus some sort of performance bonus, that's probably a pretty equitable system, because they're the ones who are doing the hardest and most valuable work in the whole company. Lead gen is okay. I mean, it's important. Closing is important, but it's the follow-up and the nurturing of the lead and moving them down the decision-making timeline that is the highest converting role, I think, in the entire company.
I just want to put on the record that Jennifer just talked about Call Porter's lead management service.
Yes, I didn't realize that, and I'm glad to learn about what you guys do. But thank God you guys have a great service for lead management, because it's extremely needed.
It is. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I know you've got a hard stop in a few minutes, but I really appreciate you coming on. This was a great, great conversation. For anyone that's listening, they want to work with you, they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, thank you for that. So it's going to be just Jen, Jen, at REI Data Source I know it's kind of long. REI, like real estate investing, reidatasource.net.
Perfect. Awesome. We will make sure to share that with the show. Guys, if you're interested in working with Jen, make sure you reach out to her. This is the first time we met in person, and I loved this conversation. I can't wait to get to know you even better. Had a great time today, and thanks again for coming on today, Jen.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. It's been really fun.
Absolutely. Anytime.